It's a whole other disability, isn't it? Not only are people dealing with the paralysis of their body, but the one thing that we take for such granted is breathing. When I was 17, I was invited to play a year's junior hockey for the Kelowna Buckaroos. And so I was down checking that out and flew down from Dawson Creek. Then we were walking back alongside the lake to go to practice. Thought I'd go in for one quick dip off the lake shore. Hit the bottom and broke my neck at a C3 level. So instant paralysis.
I didn't know anything about ventilators. I'd never heard them, I'd never seen them until one day I woke up with one on.
Well, I had no idea what I had. I was actually on a hunting trip in the Caribou, and I didn't sleep all that weekend. Had headaches, and I drove all the way back. But when we stopped to get out for something to eat, I noticed my legs were quite weak. As soon as I got back to Vancouver, we called the doctor, and he took a spinal tap, and they diagnosed it as polio. So I was into the hospital the following day.
I have what's called Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. It's a progressive muscle disease or disorder, and it slowly affects all muscles. So of course my diaphragm was eventually affected.
Kind of the last thing I remembered was trying to push my cousin out of the way, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up. I didn't know how much later this was, but it turned out to be a few weeks later in hospital. I was in a coma for a while, and my parents were called so many times to the hospital to say goodbye. I think they were getting their fill of it.
Being a hockey player, I had the wind knocked out of myself many a time. So this is what I was thinking had happened. And I was just waiting to recover. Usually it takes seconds, maybe a minute or two to recover from that. But I wasn't. And finally I said to one of the guys, pick me up under the arms. I was able to communicate that. And they picked me up under the arms, and I looked down and I saw my leg go off to the side in an uncontrolled manner. And that's when I realized that I'd probably broken my back.
I was right between elementary and high school. And so it was in '85 in the summer, and I was crossing the street as a pedestrian with my cousin, and both of us were hit by a car passing on the right.
You go from a very active young teenager to someone totally paralyzed and lying in an iron lung. Well, in my case, the only thing I could move was my head. I could turn my head. Nothing else worked.
I was struggling for every breath. And it was almost like, I used to play a lot of water polo, and it was like somebody pushing you down and then struggling to get back up, and you're out of wind because you've just given everything before you got pushed down. And then coming back up and getting some air, but that air wasn't coming. I was on the way down the stretcher in the hall of the hospital when I passed out, and the next feeling was, I remember this very clearly, in the OR, and I remember saying, beautiful, beautiful. And I guess they'd done a trach, and I was getting air. And that was just one of the more beautiful feelings that I've ever experienced.